Happy holidays, everybody. It's Dr. Jones here. We often, hear a lot about domestic violence and how the most dangerous time in a relationship is leaving the relationship or, 2 years after you leave that relationship. But I also want to talk to you all about another, extremely dangerous time for many people that is often much less talked about, and that is when you're going through child custody disputes. Child custody can be a very volatile and very hostile time, in many relationships, because when the courts get involved, you have, both sides that may be getting caught up in having to follow the court mandate whether they want to or not. And a lot of times, if you're dealing with someone who is narcissistic or toxic or just doesn't feel like the rules um, apply to them, a lot of times this is when you see the pathology appear in the relationship, because it becomes less about the child and more about how to retaliate against that child's mother or the other parent in the relationship. It becomes about gaining control, gaining the upper hand, winning the competition, getting that other person back for, leaving the relationship or whatever perceived injustices you have. So a lot of times people will act out during child custody agreements, especially when the judge makes a ruling on the child custody, whether it's 50-50 or 70-30, or you have the child during the week and the other person has a child on the weekends. And so you'll see a lot of that acting up around this time. Families can get involved. It can really turn into a mess where people just become hostile. They involve the police at every junction. And so, what does that acting up look like? It looks like not returning the child back on time to said custody place, the parent not showing up at all to pick the child up, or parent not complying with the order. The parent wanting to know what's going on with you in your personal life. And so they're messaging you as opposed to keeping messages about what's going on with the child. They're using any opportunity when it comes to the child to find out information about you. They can also, try to turn their child into a detective and have the child give them information about you, who you're dating, and what you're doing. Parental alienation can rear its head, and that's essentially where the abusive parent is trying to create distance between the child and the non-abusive parent. And so they're trying to brainwash the child into thinking negative things about you. So they'll tell them, for example, your mom is making it hard for me to see you. She won't let me come. She's had me arrested and thrown in jail. She doesn't want us to be together. She hates it when we're together, and just sort of, feeding the child all sorts of vicious lies, to try and create chaos, animosity, and distance in the relationship with a non-abusive parent. Other things that they may do is, they may just sort of, drop by on their day that they're not supposed to have the child and demand to have the child that day and not follow the court order. And so there could be that, or not communicate things that are going on with the child to the other parent. Like, and they can be petty about things too. Like if they buy the child something, then whatever they buy the child stays here. It is not to go over to that other person's house, that sort of stuff. They can they can make all this fuss about child custody, and actually win custody. But then when they get the child is usually left alone or left under the care of someone else. So they're not even really spending time with the child at all. And so you could see the escalation of that And then, they can become hostile in communicating with you, communicate veil threats, threaten to, hurt the child and things like that. There is a story, a movie actually. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, that illustrates worst case scenario, one of the worst case scenarios, and it's called David. And I won't get into the whole movie, but essentially, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, I haven't seen it in many years. The parents were fighting over custody, and the father does something horrible. He essentially abducts the child and does something horrible to him. But if you get a chance, check out and if you're into that sort of thing, you could certainly check out that movie. But that's a worst case scenario. And I think what that movie illustrates and what I'm trying to communicate with you here today is that when it comes to, child custody, escalation, hostility, and volatility, the child always, always, always suffers. And even if you don't see the results immediately, or if you're too caught up in trying to fight this thing, you're spending money on this thing, the child is going to pay the ultimate consequence, unfortunately. But if things escalate and there are genuine safety concerns, I encourage you to document and keep a record, of things that are going on. You can always ask the police to do a civil standby. You can do the child custody exchanges at the police department. Definitely seek therapy to kind of help you deal with the stress of ongoing court matters and things like that. Because, in child custody disputes are never, quick and dirty. Usually they're long and drawn out in a lot of cases. Not all, but in a lot of cases they're long and drawn out. And think about what's in the best interest of the child. If things do become dangerous or they're escalating, and you're concerned for safety, you can always talk to your child in a way that's age appropriate and educate them about what's going on just so that they are aware. And if there's concerns, you can always educate them on how to alert the authorities and things of that nature. But one of the things I would implore most people is to try to remain ethical. What does that mean? That means, try to have integrity in your disputes. In a lot of these, people get very dirty, very underhanded. They want to win at all costs. And so they will create, unfortunately, a lot of lies and situations that are meant to destroy people, destroy, whatever relationships you have, the child has with their parents, and they really want to hurt you in the worst way, and they will use the child as a way to do that. And I can't, of course, I can't tell people what to do, but I would encourage you to not do that. And if things become volatile, you can always seek a restraining order. You can find out how to do that in your city or location. You can file one yourself in most cases, or you can file what's called a civil or restraining order if you meet the requirements. But good luck. This is a stressful time for a lot of people, just in general, with the holidays and whatnot. So be safe. I've seen a lot of escalations in child custody, especially during this time of the year, because people are hurting, they're upset, they don't have their children during the holidays, and so they may ramp up and act out more than usual. So hope that helps.